Says we live. It's all the way live. It's all the way back. All the way live. I apologize for the feedback on that, y'all. Sometimes you just gotta sing it out. Hopefully everybody's doing well, and hopefully everybody's having a okay weekend so far. I just gotta do some sharing, and then we'll be out the door. So just bear with me, folks, for just 1 second. Whew. All right, I think I covered everybody. So let's go ahead and go into it. Today's date, May the 2nd, 2020, and this is how the frack we got here. I'm your host and most Will Buchanan on how the frack we got here. We do try to take the events of the week and also try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, this is an adult podcast, which means that things of adult language may be said and things of a disturbing nature may be shown, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, for a lot of us who still, if you're still under quarantine and things of that nature, probably having cabin fever right now, more than likely. Let's just say that it's still ongoing. Unfortunately, the case of coronavirus are still too high out there, and in the ways of actually anything reopening, to be quite honest, let's just take a list here. If you're in Alabama, well, your extended stay is actually going to expire, or actually has expired, allowing some businesses to open up at 50% and some elective medical procedures to resume, pretty much heavy surgery. Alaska, non-essential businesses have been open for regular business hours since April 24th. Arizona, their stay-at-home order has been extended until May 15th. And of course, in Arkansas, they've never actually had an official stay-home order in place, so I guess everything is still able to go as pleased. And things of that nature. So really, like I said, this is actually showing all 50 states here. But for a lot of them, we are still under a stay-at-home. Very few states actually do still have their stay-at-home. Much like in Nashville, much like in my home state, Tennessee, specifically Nashville, our stay-at-home has been extended until May the 15th, I believe. So, with that being said, you can imagine how some people might not have liked the news very much about, well, let's just say being put at home.
USA! I'm here to protest the virus.
USA! USA!
I'm here to say that it's not as deadly as they say it is. We're a seasonal business. We're losing time.
Why are you blocking us?
I learned a lot about the Illuminati and Freemasons and the secret societies that actually run our country, and how they control our air, food, and water. And quite frankly, it's hard for me to sleep at night knowing that.
Take your mask off and we'll talk.
From that side. They threw this. I think it hit the roof of my car. It hadn't been to the other side.
Now, quite frankly, I am just amazed that number one, so many people can gather defying about the stay-at-home order, and yet I would not also be surprised in the same turn that every one of them now became new coronavirus cases. Of course, that was New York, where Governor Cuomo had extended the stay, and honestly, out of most governors that have actually done the right thing so far, him actually extending the stay-at-home order was a good idea, considering the fact the number of cases are still on declining, which a lot of people do not understand. Now is not the best time to resume normal. The reason for that is just because the simple fact of the matter is yes, the cases across the board are slightly going down. In some areas, drastically going down. It does not mean that now you can be like, okay, we defeated coronavirus. Everybody can go back to normal. No, because that's how second wave infections happen. Much like in this case, where you have a bunch of idiots outside who would rather turn around and also do stuff like this to people that's trying to help them.
A real
Hey, go take it.
and she got her RN degree. Are you guys RNs? Do you have a degree? Why aren't you in the hospitals? You're overrun. We can't find people to help. Why are you even here? Disgusting! Absolutely disgusting. I will pray for your soul and yours and yours and yours. Shame on you. Liars. Shameful. Disgusting.
Did they cite you first, or did they just put you in handcuffs?
This is America.
Did they cite you first, or did they just put you in
They
handcuffs?
didn't cite me, no.
So they just put you in handcuffs?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the government code?
Come on.
No,
Come on, please.
no,
What happened to the
no. These guys are trying to threaten me.
Guys, I have a permit. I mean, just cover it up. We're gonna go across the street.
You don't have a right to detain him, do you? Without that, hey, let's do this. Let him show his permit. He's not gonna pull out a gun on you. Let him show his permit.
Guys, I have a permit.
Hey, go through this cut. They didn't even ask him if he has a permit. They just arrested him. America. You should be fighting for his rights.
I have a permit.
Yeah, why don't you go arrest the criminal scum? Why don't you go arrest the criminal scum taking everyone's rights? Instead of training. Cowards! You guys are cowards! That's exactly my point.
I heard about it. Look, the two kids there, they didn't care about them. The other ones,
White privilege. That's about the best way I can put that, y'all. I mean, for the simple fact of the matter, there is a danger. Like I said before, I am the last person that is going to sit there and argue about protests. However, there is a national epidemic out there with this coronavirus, and for the simple fact of the matter is, it is completely and utterly dangerous because the transmission vector, which you've heard me say many times about transmission vectors. Now, what that basically means is it's basically how the virus is passed from person to animal, what have you. Because the coronavirus honestly has so many multiple transmission vectors, for the simple fact of the matter is, large groups are exactly how the virus spreads. Now, if you're protesting about stay-at-home measures because of a virus that was actually been introduced that keeps us all indoors, and you're outside in large groups of people, chances are you're bound to actually catch it. Even in the same sense of the video I just showed, where there was one protester that admitted that they tested positive. Now, also, well, for a lot of people who also don't understand, that with the coronavirus, you don't have to show any symptoms. You can still be a carrier, which means that you can give it to other people who they call them immunosuppressant, which means their immune systems have been compromised. Could be due to disease, different conditions, blood type issues, things of that nature. You can also give it to elderly and younger kids whose immune systems are not as developed or starting to deteriorate. The thing about it is, just because you are not sick does not mean that you yourself would not be carrying it, especially in the large groups of people who again can take it back to their folks, and again, vis-a-vis, the virus still continues. So it amazes me so that when I see these anti-protests out there, it's almost as if it's almost as if I just want to say stupidity I wish stupidity was a trait that we could stop, but unfortunately, just like you probably said it, and many other people have said it before, common sense, unfortunately, is not so common anymore. But again, like I said before, it's just best that, especially if you are if you need to go out, go outside. Go outside your door. Nobody's stopping you from going outside your door. Going to the beach, that'd be a little much. That's all I'm saying. But moving right along, guys, this other article that came up really about the Paycheck Protection Program, or the PPP. I don't know why alliteration is so fun. But the story came out, and I actually talked about this last week, where I sat there and said, minorities and women who are business owners and minorities are being shut out of the Payment Protection Program, which means that currently right now it ran out of money just because so many people applied, and now it's been refunded. And again, it seems that $60 billion of it was supposed to be set aside for minority and other undeserved borrowers, vis-a-vis minorities and women. But it's amazing to me how they still can't sit there and give a good answer. Because it sits there and says, I've heard a lot about making America, quoted, I hear a lot about making America great again. In order to have a great America, there has to be a great black America. In order to have that, we need great black businesses. We need access to capital, says one of the members of the U.S. Black Chambers. And the thing I will say about this is simply this. The entire Paycheck Protection Program. Literally, it is the dumbest thing. Well, I can't say that because we had Operation Iraqi Freedom. So, the whole idea with this program is supposed to save small businesses. Because again, this goes back to the whole idea of everybody trying to make sure they can keep the lights on. Which, again, we could have done a long time ago if we just put a moratorium on utilities and rent payments. Like Bernie Sanders said so long ago that we could have avoided all of this. Because a lot of people's fears are coming from the fact of, they don't want to be evicted, they don't want to run out of food, they don't want to, lose the things they worked so hard for. And it's amazingly enough that our government, being this effing powerful, could turn around and sit there and say, you know what, we're going to put a moratorium on utilities for right now, utilities on rent and mortgages for right now, because honestly, there's no way people can find ways to pay them. I mean, when most jobs are actually on furlough or closed down, or people that lost jobs, unemployment, oh wow, people are starting to understand the headache that is unemployment, trying to get it. A lot of people right now are understanding it because, for the most part, every unemployment system in the U.S. is flawed and fucked up. And the people are now starting to understand that. But again, if we had put a moratorium on this instead of giving everybody a single $1,200 check like everything's going to be all right, would have actually saved us a lot of time in the long run, because guess what? corporations are actually still going to get a bigger piece of that that paycheck protection program, in the same sense that, again, minorities and women who are business owners will still be shut out, and you'll have a government sitting there saying we don't know why, but we do know why. The bigger companies pay more. So, also, with that being said, since we're talking about weird states, we're going to be on Georgia for a little bit, especially for this story here. Which, if you've heard about it, you'll probably see exactly where we're coming from. And feel free to comment. Feel free to comment on the story so far, or just things that you see, because I just want to know everybody's opinion on this one. Because again, this is going to hit a little. This is going to hit harder for me for at home, just because, just like many other black men who are gunned down, this honestly could have been me.
And is asking for justice more than 2 months after he was shot and killed. No one has been arrested or charged in the death of 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery. Police say he was chased by 2 men who suspected him of a crime. Arbery's family says all he was doing was jogging. Omar Villafranca talked to his mother and the family's lawyer. Interviews you will see only on CBS This Morning.
Ahmaud is no longer with us, and he's not with us because 2 men followed him while he was jogging and killed him.
Ahmaud Arbery was shot and killed in Brunswick, Georgia. We spoke to his mother, Wanda Jones.
What do you think should have already happened to these men?
An arrest should have been made already.
According to neighbors, there had been break-ins in the area. Arbery was allegedly spotted at a home that was under construction before he began to run. 911 calls came in moments later.
And you said someone's breaking into it right now?
No, it's all open. It's under construction. And he's running right now. There he goes right now.
Hey, what is he doing?
He's running down the street.
According to a police report, Gregory McMichael told police he saw Arbery run by and recognized him from the break-ins. According to the report, McMichael and his 34-year-old son Travis grabbed a shotgun and a pistol and got into their truck to go after Arbery. Once they caught up to him, Gregory McMichael told investigators Arbery violently attacked Travis and the two fought over the shotgun before Travis shot twice and killed him. The prosecutor who previously had the case says Travis acted out of self-defense and the pursuers acted within the scope of Georgia's citizens arrest statute.
It essentially deputizes all citizens to go out and perform police functions. They did not do that properly.
Lee Merritt, an attorney for Arbery's family, says he believes there have not been any indictments because Gregory McMichael is a former investigator for the Brunswick District Attorney's Office. That's why the case was transferred to the Ware County District Attorney.
There's more than enough evidence for a case for murder.
What do you think those men should have done?
They should have waited until the authorities arrived. They had already made a call to 911.
People defending the McMichaels point to Arbery's previous brushes with the law. He had a shoplifting conviction. His mother said this has nothing to do with what happened, and her son is the victim. Gregory McMichael told us since this case is still being investigated, he has no comment. Tony?
Okay. So, apologize, guys. Apparently, the internet was not going to let us be great to show that full screen. So, apparently, if you go back small screen, it's going to work. So, I apologize if you weren't actually able to see it, but I'll go ahead and recap. So, Georgia teen was actually jogging in his neighborhood, and because he was actually jogging in his neighborhood, two Caucasian males who apparently thought that he was trying to steal because of a rash of break-ins that actually happened in the neighborhood, sat there and saw the young man jogging, assumed he was a suspect, grabbed their shotguns, and decided to go after him in a truck, in which they both sat there and told police that the black man that they had been chasing, who did not know who they were until they rolled up on him with shotguns and a pistol, says the black man went ahead and the black man attacked his son, who violently attacked his son, in which his son fired two fatal shots, killing the black teen, and they were citing a citizen's arrest. Now, of course, I never did like citizen's arrest because citizen's arrest, as the reporter says, deputizes people to make arrests. Now, technically, they also think that this gives you the right to go play cops and robbers. Here's the thing, which still bothers me at this point. Just because, again, no arrests have been made, which tells me that many of things. Number one, whenever it comes to a case of a white man versus a black man, let's kind of be honest here. The white man is always considered innocent, while the black man is considered guilty. Although we still supposedly believe in the fact that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. However, for the simple fact of the matter is, they've already started the smear campaign against this man. The reason why is because their whole story looks like murder. Think about this for a second. Two white guys get on the phone to 911. Call and say there's a suspicious person walking. Oh, there he is, and decides to go after him. And they hear it on the call. You at this point went from being a nosy neighbor to now would-be police. And I say would-be police because would-be police wouldn't immediately go for the heat. These men did. Now, for some fact of the matter, this father and son isn't being prosecuted or even in jail at this point. Simply put, that they said that the father was a former county prosecutor. So therefore, he's giving the rub. At the same time, you still have neighbors out. You still have those now. When I see the smear campaign, I said the smear campaign is to basically make the victim look like he invited his own death. Now, I don't know how you invite your own death by simply jogging for exercise in a neighborhood that you were simply asking for it. Especially in the same sense that all they had to go on was the fact that people have been breaking into people's homes, but they never actually did say who they had an idea who it was. So again, why have arrests hadn't been made in the simple case, just like Amber Guyver? Amber Guyver, remember her? Remember the woman who mistakenly went to the wrong apartment, supposedly, and shot a guy, and yet still got the royal treatment, especially when she got sentenced? That all bullshit about the brother hugging her, and the judge hugging her, and the bailiff fixing her hair. Are you fucking kidding? I'm not saying that the same thing will happen here, but it's the same story. And I hate to be so personal on this, but honestly, it's the same story. That a black man, and I've said this before, brothers, I keep on telling you these. I keep on saying this, and I will keep on saying this. We're in a society where you can't be by yourself. You shouldn't be by yourself, especially in places where folks can get you. Especially in good old boy country like Georgia. Tennessee's no different. I said this is the reason why we stick together. This is the reason why I say you need to be in packs. It's the reason why you need to tell people where you are. And most importantly, I mean, you got to keep your head on a swivel. I mean, this is the point to where I'm saying like that. I feel sorry for this mom because now you got people come back to her and say, "Well, he must have deserved it. He had a record." No, he got cited for shoplifting. Okay, hardly the criminal enterprise, but at the same time, this is the narrative they're gonna sit there and use because two white dudes decide to go out there and play cop, and another black man is dead. Why does that sound familiar? Trayvon Martin, Gene Batam. I mean, we can keep going down the list of all these black men that died just because someone else feared for their life, but decided to go ahead and decided to still expense justice because they feel empowered. White privilege at its finest. But again, like I said before, I relate to those stories because honestly, that could have been me, and it actually makes me think twice about being a parent sometimes and bringing children in this world. Just because black boys, and I said it's hard to say that black men and endangered animals have a commonality because, as Chris Rock said it, endangered animals are protected by the federal government. So, with that being said, since we're still going to stay on Georgia for a little while, let's see how Brian Kemp feels about politics right now, because his story, along with this one, is crazy.
I know you're basing your decisions on medical science and data and the best advice you can get medically and economically, but if you could share with us your thought process and how this is weighing on you. This could be one of the most important decisions you will ever make in your personal or political life, because so much depends on getting it right. Opening, reopening too soon, you can imagine the potential consequences of that. What goes through your mind when you think of that?
Well, I can tell you I don't give a damn about politics right now. We're talking about somebody that has put their whole life into building a business that has people that they love and work with every single day, working in many of these places, that are at home going broke, worried about whether they can feed their children, make the mortgage payment. You know, these are tough decisions, no doubt, and I've had to make many of them, and I can promise you I will have to make more of them. But we also got to think about the effects on our economy and on these individuals from a mental health perspective, from a physical health perspective, and literally for people being able to put food on their tables. And I believe that this measured approach has got us to the time to trust our people, to keep going after and beating this virus, but do it in a way that is responsible. And I believe the people that own these businesses, as well as the people that work in them, are okay doing that for a few more weeks till we can move into phase 2. And it may be that they can't all go.
Okay, so let's stop it right there for a second. The funny part where he goes into I'll tell you what, I don't give a damn about these politics right now. And you want to sit there and go, that's not the question of what we want to ask you, sir. And I understand, because I'm going to get to that point about the title that you see, which is still funny to me that, he has a lot of hard decisions, and yet, is it a good idea to suspend road test requirements for driver's licenses? I wish I could make this up. Because he has decided, that new Georgia drivers will not be required to take a road test. Am I the only one that cringes just a little bit? That means if you're turning 16 without a road test, you can get a license. What sense does that make? I mean, he says he has difficult decisions. And you literally decide that in your executive order, you don't need a road test. 16-year-old, you know what? I am so glad I'm not in Georgia right now. Tennessee's no different because their road test is a joke. But, their road test now is a joke. I remember when I get my road test in Tennessee, you damn near had to do backflips. But, again, this should be kind of scary. I mean, it's kind of scary. It is scary. That, for Georgia reopening or trying to reopen, because a lot of places are still not going to reopen despite what the governor says, it is a simple fact of the matter is that 16-year-olds can now get a license. And you would think there'd be a requirement. No. I mean, you can sit there and say, well, you had to have your permit for at least a year and then, go from there. No. 16 years old, you want a license? I mean, if you're a 16-year-old in Georgia right now, you are loving this. If you are a parent in Georgia right now, you are afraid. If you're an insurance company, you're just like dollar bills. Because insurance rates are going to jump through the roof in Georgia, personally. But the whole idea of him just sitting there going, Oh yeah, it's a great idea for us to go ahead and just, remove this annoying little comprehensive road test to make sure that you can drive. You know what? Hope y'all's insurance is paid up. That's all I can sit there and say. But moving right along, guys, into a little bit of campaign news. We haven't covered it in a while. Trump, or I should say Dorito, because for all those that never see my show, I call Trump Dorito because let's be honest, he's pretty much an orange chip, an orange undesirable chip. But with that being said, guys, Dorito is kind of mad because with the whole idea of the COVID-19 virus, the economy is tanking. You have multiple lines of unemployment. People are wanting relief, and nobody except Doritos cult is singing his praises. And now he apparently, with all that's going on, he's mad at his campaign manager. I wonder why.
Is clearly complicating November's presidential election, given the human and economic toll on the United States. And now CNN is learning about an angry outburst from President Trump directed at his campaign manager as the president fumes over criticism of his handling of the pandemic and the sliding poll numbers that have come with that, sources tell CNN. CNN's Jeremy Diamond is breaking the story for us. Jeremy, what are you learning?
Well, Jake, as you mentioned, President Trump has grown increasingly unnerved in the last week about his re-election prospects. Aides have presented him with data showing that his poll numbers are sliding in some of those key battleground states and that he could be headed for defeat against former Vice President Joe Biden if things continue the way that they are. Amid all of that, Jake, the stress of that information affecting the president, it seems, and he let it out in an angry outburst with Brad Parscale, the president's campaign manager. I'm told that the president was huddling with some of his aides on Friday at the White House Friday evening, and that Brad Parscale was on the phone. The president berated him, I'm told, for his own sliding poll numbers, as well as and even threatened to sue Parscale. Now, it's not clear exactly how serious the president was about that threat, and I'm told that the president and Parscale have since patched things up. In fact, Brad Parscale spent several hours at the White House just yesterday and got the president's approval on some new campaign ads. But, Jake, this is just the latest sign of how the president is really trying to grapple with what is a rapidly shifting dynamic in this 2020 election. Coronavirus has changed everything. The president's economy has been overturned, and certainly the president is grasping for ways that he can regain ground. Amid all of that, some of his aides, including Parscale, have been encouraging him to scale back some of those news briefings, and what one source close to the White House told me was that the president's outbursts at Parscale appears to be just the president blowing off steam and really trying to blame other people.
Yes, the excuse. Because apparently the campaign manager told Trump the truth. Trump didn't like it, and so Dorito decided, oh, well, I'm going to fire you, and then somehow I'm going to sue you. That's pretty much sounds like Dorito's MO when things are going his way. He can lawyer you to death. And because he still has daddy's money, he can still annoy you to death. And I just think it's kind of funny that, what other news could that campaign manager could have told this man? Oh, well, do the people love me? They actually hate you, Mr. President. How can they hate me? I just gave them $1,200. I guarantee that's probably the conversation that happened in the White House. But of course, with President Dorito's numbers sliding, he really should be not surprised about that. But he's not the only candidate that's having issues. Oh no, we have to go across the Democrats too, because Joe Biden apparently has a little bit of an issue keeping his hands to himself.
Biden to address an accusation from a former Senate staffer who says he sexually assaulted her 27 years ago. We get more now from Andrea Mitchell, and a word of caution. Some of the details in the story are graphic.
Joe Biden facing mounting pressure to speak out about an accusation he sexually assaulted a Senate staffer in 1993. Former Senate aide Tara Reid says then-Senator Biden pinned her against a wall and assaulted her in a corridor. She started telling her story in March to news outlets, including Democracy Now!
I remember his hands underneath my blouse and underneath my skirt, and his fingers penetrating me as he was trying to kiss me, and I was pulling away.
The Biden campaign has said this absolutely did not happen. Reid's public account has evolved over time. Last year, she was among a handful of women who called out Biden for what they called inappropriate, though not sexual, touching. At the time, Reid describing Biden touching her on the shoulder or running his index finger up my neck during a meeting. NBC News has reached out to 5 people Reid said she told about the alleged assault, either at the time or since. 3 former Senate staffers told NBC News they do not recall any such conversation with Reid. A 4th, who asked that her name be withheld, says Reid did tell her about it at the time. A 5th person, who also spoke with NBC but did not want her name used, recalled Reid telling her about inappropriate touching, but not an assault. Reid also says her mother called into Larry King Live in 1993 without identifying herself, talking about a daughter having a problem with an unnamed prominent politician. Her mother died in 2016. NBC cannot verify she was the caller. Earlier this week, Linda Lacasse, a former neighbor, recalled Reid telling her about an alleged assault several years after the alleged incident. What Lacasse texted us was consistent with what Reid had told us, but Lacasse has not responded to our calls to verify the account. Biden's allies, including several women he has considered as a potential running mate, are defending him and citing his record combating violence against women. And today, Nancy Pelosi.
I do support Joe Biden. I'm satisfied with how he has responded.
The Trump campaign has seized on the accusation, although the president has been accused of sexual assault by multiple women. The president has denied their accounts and commented tonight.
I think he should respond. You know, it could be false accusations. I know all about false accusations. I've been falsely charged numerous times.
NBC News has asked Tara Reid for an interview. Vice President Biden will be answering the allegation for the first time tomorrow on Morning Joe on MSNBC.
Okay, for the simple fact of the matter, of course, we always, whether you go wherever you're at, you always hear about the creepy Joe jokes and the simple fact of inappropriate touching. And now it seems a sexual assault allegation has come forward with this former staffer. And of course, Joe did respond saying that it was, he didn't do it. He's not sure what happened to this woman, things of that nature. What I find really interesting is that they talked about the women that are defending him and, I should say, possible VP picks. Because at this point, I've already sat there and said it. The only way he's getting out of this, for everybody to forget as far as being exonerated, is that a woman, he's going to have to pick a woman VP. He's going to pick a woman as vice president. Because if he picks a guy as vice president, cancel Christmas. But at the same time, VP hopeful Stacey Abrams was also asked about this, and this was her answer about Joe Biden.
President, I think it's important that we speak about something that's in the news now. As you know, there is a sexual assault allegation against Joe Biden. The accuser, her name is Tara Reid, tells CNN that the alleged incident happened in 1993 while she was working as an aide in Biden's Senate office. She is claiming that she was delivering Biden a duffel bag and says that Biden had her up against the wall in a corridor on the Hill and violated her with his fingers. Now, CNN has now spoken on the record with her former neighbor, who says Reid told her about the allegation within a few years of the alleged incident. Biden's campaign says untrue, never happened. Is this a credible allegation?
I believe that women deserve to be heard, and I believe that they need to be listened to. But I also believe that those allegations have to be investigated by credible sources. The New York Times did a deep investigation, and they found that the accusation was not credible. I believe Joe Biden. I believe that he is a person who has demonstrated that his love of family, his love of our community has been made perfectly clear through his work as a congressional leader and as an American leader. I know Joe Biden, and I think that he is telling the truth and that this did not happen.
So in 2018, you tweeted it was shameful that Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court nomination was being rushed forward and survivors of violence like Christine Blasey Ford deserve to have their voices heard. Are you applying a different standard now?
Not at all. I believe then and I believe now that women deserve to be heard because too often they are not. And Tara Reid deserved to have her story listened to and investigated. What was happening to Christine Blasey Ford was that there was no investigation. There was a rush to move the conversation forward so that no investigation was conducted. And as I said, I believe that those allegations needed to be investigated. And I believe that the New York Times and subsequent reports support what the Biden campaign has said. And I believe Joe Biden.
So you said you've heard her, you've heard enough, you don't believe her, you believe Joe Biden.
No, what I'm saying is that the New York Times investigation of her allegations, the New York Times investigation does not support the accusations against the vice president. I believe the Biden I know, and I think that he will make women proud, that he will make America proud.
Does Joe Biden personally need to address this more directly and publicly?
I believe his campaign has been very clear, and I believe that that is the approach that they intend to take. And I support the approach because, again, we don't want women to ever be afraid to come forward, but we also have to recognize that allegations should be investigated and that those investigations need to be borne out.
So the problem with this is just that, well, on two accounts. Really woke Don Lemon. She just sat there and gave you what every VP hopeful answer gives you. That no, Biden didn't do anything wrong. And she actually did make some sense where she sat there and said that yes, the New York Times and other journalistic reporting have sat there and came up with the conclusion that what she says versus what happened versus what he says doesn't add up. And there's not really some smoking gun or hidden truth there. Of course, Don Lemon, so you believe Joe Biden. Here's the thing, which always amazes me, because I try to defend CNN sometimes, and sometimes I just go, really, CNN, that you guys honestly really shoot yourselves in the foot and reload. For a simple fact of the matter, Don Lemon, if she sat there, like I said, this is a hopeful vice president candidate who is now about to jump more than likely the Biden train, because honestly, my money's on Stacey Abrams being his VP, because like I said, he needs a woman vice president. At the same time, let's also be honest, a black vice president that isn't Michelle Obama is automatically going to be a win in some areas. But she sat there. What she said made actual sense. Yes, Tara Reid should actually have her day in court. As far as coming to her accuser. Joe Biden, who's already sat there and went on Morning Joe to defend it, will probably have to wind up still defending it on other shows. But I love the fact she sat there and said it does need to be investigated if there is merit. And for the simple fact of the matter is, yes, there is merit. And if there's merit, it should go there. She has no problem with that. But keep on harping about the fact of do you believe Joe Biden or not. Again, she's not going to mess up her ride to the White House. Let's be honest, that's just a game of politics. Now, for me, it's like, yeah, I got a few friends of mine that'll sit there and say, well, it's creepy Joe, and Joe's already been accused of inappropriate touching, but not assault. So who knows how the story's going to go. I just find it funny that right now the final two candidates that we have for re-election, it's amazing how Trump is going to talk about sexual harassment, considering that most of his sexual harassment suits have actually been resolved out of court, or he's actually paid them off. But, he knows all about harassment, things of that nature. Anyway, speaking of Dorito, he decided that now's a good time to pick up his tariff war with China.
Are reportedly exploring proposals to demand financial compensation from China for its handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Sources telling CNN these senior officials from multiple government agencies have been strategizing about their options. Many health officials believe the coronavirus was first transmitted from animals to humans at a so-called wet market in Wuhan, China. Let's go to CNN national security correspondent Kylie Atwood there at the State Department. And Kylie, what are you hearing from sources about possible punishments for China?
Yeah, so U.S. government officials in multiple agencies have been working on potential consequences for China, essentially formulating what would be a long-term plan for China to pay a price to the coronavirus that has spread throughout the world and become a pandemic. U.S. officials have pointed their finger at China for that virus repeatedly. We have heard Secretary Pompeo pretty bluntly say that China needs to pay a price. But what is interesting here is that there are real efforts underway, and some of the discussions have focused on options such as sanctions or canceling on U.S. debt obligations to China and new trade policies. Now, nothing is set in stone right now. These are still ongoing conversations, Brooke. And it's also important to consider that it is really pivotal to consider this moment in time. The U.S. cannot move too quickly if they want to inflict a cost on China. That is because a lot of these medical supplies, their supply chains, which the U.S. is reliant on right now, go through China. And so one U.S. official explained to me that it would be irresponsible for the Trump administration to drive too quickly with this effort, but there are efforts underway to try and put some specifics on how China could pay the price.
Okay, so let's stop right there for a second. How can we say this about Dorito? Dorito, really? So again, not only are you insinuating that China had something to do with this coronavirus, now you feel like because you firmly believe that this was caused by them, you want to turn around and make them pay somehow. Well, you caused this virus, you're gonna pay for it. But I was like, wait a second. You're already in tariff war with China. You've made prices increase. You've actually lost jobs because of this tirade war about this tariff war that you have with them. And on top of that, of course, there was one little key sentence that they said that I'm pretty sure I caught, and I hope you guys caught as well. That the way to make China pay was one option they were considering was canceling debts. Now, I don't know if all y'all guys remember, but we borrowed money from China for the start of the Iraq and then Afghanistan war. We are in the hole with China, to the tune of about $90+ billion. We're still in the hole with them. And for the simple fact of the matter, because now, and I hate to say it, it kind of feels like they're taking a golden opportunity to turn around and sit there and say, you caused it, so you know what? We're going to cancel our debts. We don't owe you shit. And I'm not saying that's what they're moving forward with, but I can't help but feel, because again, the State Department is allowing people to sue China over the coronavirus, and now here we are, Doritos' government is going to make China pay. Keep in mind, 90% of what comes out of China is actually what comes into the U.S. Do you really want to mess with your supplier on that? Considering the fact that China can turn around and sit there and say, okay, you're cut off. Trust me. Again, as I said at best, when you control the manufacturing, the labor, and everything else that comes out of China, you really don't want to screw with somebody that can make your manufacturing and shipping life very, very difficult. Again, in the same sense of Trump with Doritos, somebody just needs to basically tell him, dude, don't fuck with China. It's not going to end well for you, and they will still wind up winning. But that story we'll stick with. That story we will stick with as it progresses. But also, I was talking about this I was talking about this last night. For all those that are about to watch this article, watch this video that I'm about to play, please, oh please, don't panic. I'm hoping to God this is going to have a positive effect and not a negative one. I hope.
An act to order meat processing plants to stay open during the pandemic. It comes amid warnings that meat shelves in grocery stores could go empty this week. According to the union representing workers, at least 22 plants have closed because of the virus in the last 2 months, and at least 20 meat packing and food processing workers have died. Here's CBS's Dean Reynolds.
The livestock has been piling up at the nation's processing plants with a sudden drop in workers to turn the supply into food.
It's becoming a real serious situation.
Livestock analyst Dennis Smith says that with red meat production down 20%, consumers could soon face the consequences of an unprecedented food chain disruption.
I would say the first week of May is when it's very possible that you'll begin to experience some shortages. It could be spotty shortages at first, but then more widespread.
It's not that there isn't supply, it's that there are fewer workers turning pigs into pork chops and cattle into steaks.
We just won't have enough space to house all the animals that we have.
In Minnesota, farmer Matt Patterson said with pig pens overflowing and few places to take his herd, euthanasia has been a terrible option.
Pretty tough for me to even think about.
Gary Harris, who's worked at the now shuttered Tyson plant in Logansport, Indiana for 2 decades, says companies should take the blame for reacting too slowly and turning his workplace into a hot spot.
I've heard supervisors say that it's just a virus like the flu.
Harris has been tested but has yet to get back a result.
How do you feel about going back to work there? Not good at all.
A union official said the president's back-to-work order is reckless, and he added, quote, more people will become infected, more people will get sick, and some of those people will die.
That's a terrible way to cut it off right there at the end of that. But again, and I say this with all sincerity, this is not a time to panic. Yes, there have been 22 meat production plants that have been shut down because of the coronavirus and people getting sick, which is about to go into the next article I got. This doesn't mean that you need to panic shop in the grocery stores. It does not. If anything, basically we are fine if everybody shops normal. Because this is what happened the last time that we had a pandemic. People bum rush stores, and all panic shopping did was cause a lot of a food supply shortage that didn't need to happen. So again, with the same thing being said, just like with toilet paper and meat and everything else, those products, now would not be the time to go running to the store and buying every cut they have. You will still see meat there. There's no need to panic. So, I just feel like I had to say that because I'm almost certain there's going to be one person that's going to sit there, run to Costco, and try to get every ribeye steak they got. Also, another alternative that a lot of people aren't considering, if you have a meat market in your city or town, those meat markets usually do work with local farms. Those local farms have to offset their livestock somewhere. Go to your local meat market or go to your local butcher. Trust me, meat's not disappearing. They just can't find a way to process it. And aside from these large corporations that have these multiple factories, this is where small business comes into play. Because if you know where a local meat market, if you know where your local butcher or meat market is, they are still taking in livestock from local farms. And honestly, that's not actually a bad alternative. I know where one is in my area, and I go to that when I don't get my certain cuts I don't get at a store. I go straight to that small business, and I still get what I need. Sometimes even fresher. But that's just me. But again, just an alternative for all you guys out there who don't want to go to the meat markets, but still need your steaks. They can still be found. You just have to do a little bit of work. But the reason why those plants are being shut down is because, well, people who work in those meat markets are subject to this.
As well, and now the workers who say they do not feel safe. Tonight, inside one meat processing plant, ABC News obtaining video showing workers close together, some without masks. And we know of the numbers, at least 22 meat processing plants already shut down in this country, 6,500 infections among workers. Again tonight, Matt Gutman.
Tonight, a first glimpse inside a meatpacking plant. Workers crowded shoulder to shoulder at a George's poultry plant in Arkansas. You can see them pushing through that plastic sheeting, masks down. No social distancing. Worker advocates say this was shot just this week. And here at a Tyson plant in early April, workers sitting around open tables. But this is what Tyson, which says it's committed to protecting its workers, says break rooms look like now, adding those dividers.
What do we have going on?
In Arkansas today, police called in to escort protesters off the property at this poultry plant. Labor organizers saying these essential workers are in jeopardy.
They are just waiting to see when are they gonna get sick, and if they're gonna get sick, if they're gonna die. And if we don't protect them right, we are going to see a food crisis. We're going to see a health crisis. We're going to see an economic crisis.
Across the country, more than 6,500 meatpacking workers infected with COVID-19, the virus killing at least 20 of them, including at least 6 from this beef plant in Colorado. At least 22 meat processing plants shut down nationwide just over the past 2 months. Concerned the shutdowns would trigger food shortages in America, the Trump administration on Tuesday giving meatpacking plants wide latitude to reopen as long as they follow federal guidelines.
I think we're having these plants prepared to open in days, not weeks, some maybe by the end of this week.
Now, the federal government, David, says that these plants can get back to business once they provide written documentation that they are following the guidelines of OSHA and the CDC. But worker advocates say that without on-site health inspections, that's basically like allowing these plants to police themselves. One thing, Tyson tonight saying that as it reopens plants, it will provide on-site health care to its employees.
Forgive me when I say yeah, right. But that is the truth, though. A lot of because Dorito has enacted the Defense Production Act, which basically does empower him to basically force, I guess the best way I can say it, is basically force some companies that are detrimental to our way of life to continue on. Hence, in this case, food shortage supplies. But I also say because vis-a-vis most of these people that are like Tyson and those other food companies that own these production companies, well, they support Trump. So you should be surprised that, they go crying Dorito. Dorito waves a wand and says, you guys need to stay open. This does set a dangerous precedent, not only for the simple fact of COVID-19 workers getting sick, but they're also handling meat. And at the same time, we still haven't had a case of where food can be contaminated, which obviously can be contaminated by a sick person. So imagine that in a grocery store, somebody picks it up, and the cycle continues. So again, with these meat workers, I say the same sense. It is your job is not worth your life. And I can't blame them for that, because it's still in that same boat where we're about to go into now, about people just trying to find ways of just trying to make it right now because they're not getting the help they need. Because like I said before, that simple stimulus check of $1,200 will barely scratch the surface for some people. Actually, it should have been $2,000, and it should have been continuous to help people out every month until we're back on our feet. But then again, that's just me. But again, with these meatpacking plants, it is just so very strenuous and difficult, because you have people who are literally forced to go back to work or lose their job, which that's a hell of a decision, honestly. Because it's dealing with your life. And let's be honest, nobody can sit there and I wouldn't blame any of those workers if they turned around and sat there and said, well, fuck that, I'm not going in. I don't blame them. Your life is worth more than your job. I will always say that. But speaking of things where I have found interesting, where I keep on saying Canada just seems to beat us in everything, well, they beat us in this.
Week. 22 Canadians were killed in the deadliest rampage in our country's history. They were nurses and teachers, correctional officers and RCMP officers. They were someone's child, someone's best friend, someone's partner. Their families deserve more than thoughts and prayers. Canadians deserve more than thoughts and prayers. Today, we are closing the market for military-grade assault weapons in Canada. We are banning 1,500 models and variants of these firearms by way of regulations. These weapons were designed for one purpose and one purpose only: to kill the largest number of people in the shortest amount of time. There is no use and no place for such weapons in Canada.
Yep, you gotta love Canada. You gotta love Canada, because apparently all it takes for them is one mass murder, and next thing you know, they're banning shit. Kind of like New Zealand. New Zealand only needed one. But again, I got no problem with that. I'm a gun owner, and I have no problem with that. The simple fact of the matter is just that assault-style weapons are not needed. I have sat there and said this many a time. Can you explain to me, outside of the use of a regular firearm, why you would need an assault-style weapon? Assault-style being those of an AR variety. Don't get me wrong, I understand I understand the other need for other AR weapons if you are doing training for a job, specifically those of private military contractors, things of that nature. Or if you just want to simply give gun safety as far as gun training zone, things of that nature. I understand. But explain, and I also get home defense. Trust me, I'm not going to argue home defense either. But the simple fact of the matter is there needs to be some banning of some weapons because, for lack of better words, it is way too easy for some, for some people to turn around and get access to these firearms. Case in point, I cannot make this up. In Tennessee, right now, and if you think I'm lying, I will happily show you. We have gun trade and knife shows here in Tennessee, all over the place. More so East Tennessee than West Tennessee. Anyway, the thing about these gun trade and knife shows, if you have the money and ID, you can go walk in, buy a gun, and walk out. You're probably wondering where the background check is. It's not there. Background checks aren't done at these gun trade and knife shows. So if you're wanting to get a gun and you have some pocket change, not pocket change be on the low side because some of them guns are high-end guns. But what I'm saying is, if you have the money and the means to get there, you, my friend, can have a gun. No background check done. That means that if you have a history of domestic violence, you can get a background check. If you have a history of mental instability, you can get a gun. If you are over the age of 18, you can get a gun. I just described 3 scenarios where people easily can get guns where they should not have access to them. And I love the fact in this case of Canada actually banning AR style weapons. Again, that doesn't mean that you still can't own firearms. There are still firearm laws in Canada, even more stricter than ours, but they're banning assault style weapons that can kill a mouse amount of people. Again, to a certain extent. Explain to me, unless your life is in constant danger, which the only people I can think of whose lives are in constant danger are people with that kind of skin. Why would you need something that can kill a lot of people in a short amount of time? That's the argument I usually say. Because until then, we keep on hearing saying, well, this won't work if we do this. This won't work if we do this. This won't work if we do this. Well, we now know your side of it. Let's actually see what happens. And I wouldn't be surprised if Canada's crime goes down. Nobody's looking at Japan's crime, and Japan's gun laws are probably some of the strictest gun laws I have ever seen in any country. So, let's just see what happens. But, of course, that being said, like I said before, this is May 2nd, which means the first of the month has passed. And let's be honest, a lot of us are pretty much in this pit right now.
Difficult day for millions of out-of-work Americans.
It's been scary.
For many, May 1st marks the second new month without a paycheck.
Rent, car insurance, car payment, electricity, internet, groceries, school.
Major bills like rent and mortgage payments now due. And with at least 8 states still permitting evictions and foreclosures, housing advocates are now warning about a widespread crisis of people losing their homes, thanks to unemployment and stimulus payments still trapped in the backlogs.
Priority is the mortgage, to keep that up, to keep the lights on, just to keep surviving.
It comes as employees from Target, Walmart, Amazon, and other retailers prepare to walk off the job today, protesting what they say are unsafe working conditions. Protesters even painted the street outside the home of Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, calling for more worker protections.
We're here for fair tuition now.
Also this morning, protesters are taking aim at colleges and universities.
What do we want? Fair tuition! When do we want it? Now!
Students picketing schools, saying they're not getting what they paid for.
It's just not the same.
And people need relief.
Could really help someone pay for rent, put food on their table.
Now that most colleges and universities have shut their doors and gone remote, those who enrolled are fighting to get their spring tuition refunded.
We would like monetary reimbursement that reflects an online education.
Make sure that we were providing some refunds on meal plans, that we were providing refunds on the housing.
But this morning, institutions are facing mounting financial troubles, creating an uncertain future for high school seniors who need to commit to college by today.
Now I'm scared to get my hopes up for like freshman year.
But with low fall enrollment numbers, schools across the country are pushing back the enrollment deadline and possibly opening up new opportunities for students looking to get into a top university.
Once we're out of reach, schools are going to be within reach, because here's why. There's going to be far fewer international students who take up many places at elite colleges. They can't come to the U.S., or they're going to be afraid to be stuck in the U.S. if there's a second wave.
Now, guys, this may not only open up more slots, but it also opens up financial aid. And experts say it definitely doesn't hurt to apply for it. They also say there's advantages to applying to a number of colleges next year because there's a possibility of being able to negotiate among them.
Yeah, there's a possibility of all this stuff. Why? Because colleges still need money, even though they get federal government money, even though they get booster money. I do feel for the class of 2020 right now, just because college is uncertain. But I'll also say this: college is not the only path as well. As I always said it best, college is for all those that want to do it, but you should also have a trade. Trade jobs are just as valuable as college jobs. No shit. I cannot sit there and tell you. I honestly wish somebody would have stopped me and said before I went to college, it was like, hey, just in case things don't work out, always learn a trade, because a trade will always have employment. And true, welders, contractors, plumbers, electricians, auto mechanics, keep in mind, those 5 things I just named off are still open careers to where you have a steady job and actually good money. I mean, don't get me wrong. A master electrician or a master plumber can make just as much as your mid-area executive, just because of the years and experience you provide. So I always there say it best: never knock the fact of trade schools, but also at the same time, the whole thing with colleges now, and especially with these graduating seniors, it is a little difficult to swallow that you are probably in one of the most uncertain times to try to learn higher education. But it is amazing to me that, again, this goes back to what I said. We literally need, the government could write a blank check to us the same way they wrote a blank check to Wall Street. They just choose not to. And again, puts a lot of people in turmoil. But I don't blame those kids. I don't blame those kids right now. They're sitting there saying, oh no, if I can't get an education, roll my shit back. Because I don't want my student loans to be reflecting this. I mean, you guys still get paid, but I still got to wind up paying it, and I don't get anything out of this. Forget that. Ride out shit all the way back. But aside from student loans, that's not the only thing that's going around here. There seems to be a growing movement, and honestly, I wish I would have hesitated. And I'll tell you why after this clip.
Out of work, there is growing concern that many could be evicted from their apartments or their homes. In our Financial Fallout series, we've been reporting on the economic impact of the coronavirus. The Federal CARES Act temporarily shields some people living in federally subsidized housing, and some states have put a short-term hold on all evictions. But our consumer investigative correspondent Anna Warner found that protections are hodgepodge. And a hodgepodge normally not a good thing, and you've also found that some rules aren't even being followed. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and that's right, Gail. We found some renters facing eviction who shouldn't be because they live in rental properties that appear to be covered by that federal CARES Act moratorium. Of course, that's on the federally subsidized housing. Most renters don't even have that federal protection, and many of them don't have any protection in their states either.
It's nice and bright and sunny.
Before the pandemic took her job, Rhonda Englander says she worked as a contract medical assistant visiting patients' homes.
They stopped sending you assignments in mid-March. What has that meant for you financially?
No income.
No income at all?
None.
No income, she says, meant she couldn't pay the April rent on her 2-bedroom apartment in Boise, Idaho. She says she asked the complex manager to forgive her rent or help her in other ways.
They were not willing to work with me, nor were they willing to waive any administrative fees or late fees.
How do you feel about that?
Incredibly angry. knowing that I'm one among so many that are experiencing this.
Some states, including Massachusetts and Delaware, offer temporary protections from eviction. And the Federal CARES Act put a 120-day moratorium on evictions for those living in federally subsidized rental properties. But some advocates are seeing problems.
The calls have just doubled in the last couple of weeks.
Richard Kling runs an Oklahoma City University program that gives free legal help to people facing eviction.
They don't know what to do. They're getting threatened with eviction. They've lost their job. And so they're just frustrated and scared. They're scared.
Take Ayanna Stallings, who lives in the Oklahoma City metro area.
It's kind of hard to realize, okay, now I don't have a job.
She lost her job in a middle school due to COVID and fell behind on her rent. Then her landlord gave her an eviction notice.
And I was told that there was multiple people, especially like my neighbors, that got a similar letter as me, who are in the same boat, and they're well aware that we are not working at the current time.
Yet Kling found her apartment complex is covered by the federal eviction moratorium, something he pointed out to the property managers in this letter, warning them their action could be a violation. On Tuesday, we spoke to one of the complex's owners who said this was a screw-up by a local manager, that neither he nor the management company were aware of the eviction warning given to Stallings until yesterday, and he said we immediately stopped that. But Kling says it's one of several cases he's seen at various properties in the area.
I'm seeing a small piece of the action. How many people are getting threatened with eviction and intimidated and scared? And are they going to move out when they could stay there for 4 months? I want to prevent that.
Well, in many parts of the country, evictions have been put on temporary hold. They've been held off.
Bob Pinniger with the National Apartment Association insists most people won't face eviction, even if they've been put on notice, because many courts are closed.
At this point, nothing can happen until the courts reopen. That could be anywhere from weeks to months.
But the renters don't know that, and they are panicked.
Well, I think if you watch the news and the television, this is things that are being talked about right now. By and large, the industry is working with residents and setting up payment plans.
Still, many people will owe months of back rent. Experts worry a housing crisis is looming.
This is the worst economic crisis the United States has seen in generations.
And Matthew Desmond, a Princeton University professor who runs the Eviction Lab project, says,
if nothing else changes and evictions continue as normal, then this public health crisis will turn into a full-blown homelessness crisis.
Now, the federal moratorium is set to expire on July 25th. Housing advocates are pushing for a national moratorium for all renters, not just federally subsidized housing renters. They also want billions of dollars from the government to help these renters out. By the way, Rhonda Englander in Idaho, she did get her April rent covered through a local charity. She said she's not sure what she's going to do about her $875 rent payment for May. An attorney for her complex told us that if they forgave her rent, they'd have to forgive everybody's, but he noted that they have chosen not to evict anyone for the month of April. Tony.
Now that wow, that came out wrong. Well, that itself is really to the extreme if you think about it. Now keep in mind, I know you probably heard me say a moratorium needs to be put in. Now, federal means that pretty much if you live in subsidized housing, that's federally backed, which means that you've probably heard this term multiple times, so I'm not gonna be ashamed of saying it. If you live in Section 8 or HUD housing or apartments that are under Section 8 or federally backed apartments or homes, that means that you fall under the federal moratorium. Most places do not, so therefore they can still proceed as business as normal. Now, that's the part where there's a difference between a federal moratorium and a national moratorium, which means national means everybody's on the same boat versus federal being only a select few. Now, for the simple fact of the matter, y'all, it amazes me so because, probably for a lot of you guys, you are probably trying to find ways. If your job has been postponed or furloughed, or you just been laid off, or you're waiting for unemployment, the last thing anybody wants is a simple fact of the matter of waiting for an eviction notice. Because, again, this goes back to what I said and what the lawyer said. Definitely look into that, because for a lot of places, They can't evict you because eviction takes a court order, and if the courts are closed, they can't get one. Now, again, this goes back to the whole thing about knowing the laws in your home. I'm sorry, in your city and in your state. Knowing that will save you a lot of time because a lot of people, like I said, nobody wants to see an eviction notice. I'll be the first. I'll be right there along with y'all. Nobody wants to see it, but you should be prepared as far as what you can and can't do. So if you're unaware, definitely call legal aid, and because I believe legal aid is offered in every state. Feel free to call legal aid and ask them questions because the more knowledge you have, the more you're empowered to do it. But again, nobody wants to be evicted, and actually, it would be a cruel ass thing to evict anybody right now just because of the ability to pay. Because again, this goes back to the whole thing I'm saying. A national moratorium should have been put in place just to ease people's minds because that's a little bit of what the craziness is out there with these folks that are protesting. Because aside from them wanting to work, they're worried about how can they keep the lights on and a roof over their heads. So we're not really surprised by that. But also, that's just a part of this. Like I said, the good, misery comes in threes. And well, aside from the fact of higher education not being available or will not be available, aside from the fact that you have to worry about a roof over your heads, now you got this.
U.S. economy tonight. 3.8 million workers filing unemployment claims last week alone. Now 30 million jobs lost in 6 weeks. We're with the workers tonight, still waiting to hear back after applying for unemployment. And if your state is planning to reopen now, are you no longer eligible for unemployment benefits? More states weighing in on this point tonight, and ABC's Victor Akendo from Florida.
Tonight, with those unemployment numbers skyrocketing, these food lines are becoming the new normal. These scenes today from Phoenix. It's the last day of the month, and that means bills are due.
Rent, car insurance, car payment, electricity, internet, groceries, school.
Marissa Jenks is a college student who was laid off from her waitress job. She filed for unemployment more than a month ago and is still waiting. When she tries to check the website,
It says the system has experienced an unexpected technical error. It happens every time. I get nowhere.
in the long term, as Florida and other states make plans to reopen, some governors are imposing restrictions on the ability of people to collect unemployment if they choose not to return to work because they don't feel safe. But in the short term, homeowners like Haiti Fernandez Stapa and her husband, who own a catering company in Las Vegas, are worried about their mortgage.
It's been scary. Priority is the mortgage, to keep that up, to keep the lights on, just to keep surviving.
By one count, 3.8 million American homeowners skipped mortgage payments last month. Many lenders are currently offering forbearance, a temporary grace period that lets borrowers pause payments. Under the CARES Act passed by Congress, you have up to a year for most mortgages.
They've got a lot of wiggle room to work with you now, but if you fall behind a couple of months and they've got to chase you down, that's when the options are going to be a lot thinner.
I know so many workers are still waiting to hear back if their unemployment request has been answered and if they're going to get those benefits. But in the meantime, Victor, I want to get back to you because you reported there in several states. If businesses are allowed to reopen and employees still are worried about their health, they don't want to come back yet for fears of the virus, could they be denied benefits? You've got word from Texas authorities after other states weighed in.
That's right, David. Officials in Texas just clarified you can continue collecting unemployment if you have a valid reason for not returning to work. But in some states, like Utah and Missouri, businesses are lobbying for protection against lawsuits if their employees were to get sick. But now you have unions pushing back. This should all be addressed in the next coronavirus relief bill.
And that begins the next side of litigation. Because like they sat there and said, a lot of these companies, a lot of these states are pushing for it and saying, yes, if the stay-at-home orders have been lifted and you can go back to work, you choose not to go back to work, then they're pretty much saying, well, you don't get benefits. Which is still, by itself, the most asinine way of thinking that, just because the cases as far as coronavirus are still widespread. But the fact that you're forcing people to go back to work does lead to some fact of the matter is, well, if I get sick, I'm suing the company. In which these companies are now saying we need protection against this, because if you're telling these people that they have to come back to work, or because they won't get unemployment, that if they get sick on our dime, they can sue us. Trust me, I was in that same boat, because I sat there and told my job where I was working. I said, look, If we have to come in and this coronavirus thing is still going on and I get sick, I am suing because they didn't because well at the time they didn't provide us correct PPE equipment. They pretty much I mean, everybody else was actually sent home, so because we were considered essential employees, they didn't do what they can to help us out, to protect us. And of course, hazard pay wasn't really brought up. I wish I could make that up, but I digress. But again, with these people that are going back to work or having to make the decision to go back to work, it is amazing. The simple fact of the matter is that some companies still don't get it. And at the same time, the government, which has the ability, because again, they wrote a blank check to Wall Street, could turn around and help us in the same way. But again, this is what people, this is, I mean, the new normal, what we're looking at, food lines, unemployment being an issue, being forced to work or being forced to work or risk chances of being sick or losing your unemployment benefits. At the same time, if you're a college student, that you might not actually get that college, experience anytime soon, is unfortunately becoming the new normal that I wish I had better answers for. But let's be honest, Doritos at the helm. That alone should tell you everything that you need to know. So that's all the stories we got, guys. So I'm going to basically go into the feel good news segment because, like we always do on How the Frack We Got Here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom, sometimes negative, sometimes funny, sometimes just downright makes you lose your faith in humanity. But since the show occurs on the weekend, and of course now with a lot of people still being cooped up inside, go outside, enjoy some fresh sun if you got some sun. I know it's hot as all get out in Tennessee right now, but then again we shouldn't be surprised about that. But we do try to leave you on some positive vibes, some good notes, something to make you feel good. So the stories I got right here, the first one, I still think it's great because it does restore my faith in humanity a little bit.
I know we're here for them. We do everything we do here in the hospital is for the patient.
I wanna feel like these patients should get the #1 treatment.
Everybody's helping each other and trying to combat this virus, and everybody's working hard.
I love seeing patients. I love the whole entire staff of NYP. I feel like I'm saving a life. Me cleaning up the room.
We can do it. We can eliminate this little by little. Everybody together, we can.
And that's cool. For all that, I mean, that is an actual group of individuals. Like I said, I call them the custodial, but they call them environmental services. This group of people has decided that they wanted to go into a certain children's hospital in New York, and they are basically cleaning up the rooms of COVID-19 patients. Now, I don't know what to tell you about that, but that is honestly brave as shit for what they're doing. And again, the fact that they volunteered for it. That's the thing that's why I say that makes me appreciate people like that and restores my faith in humanity a little bit. But also what restores my faith in humanity is just that these businesses out here, some of them have amazing stories. Like this one where an anonymous supporter decided to help out this company called Brooks and Brew Pizzeria, in which he remained anonymous, decided to contact the owners and say, I don't want you to close, so I'm financially backing you. And long story short, since they got that financial backing, they were able to sit there and literally keep their place open and still be able to offer services. And again, I just thought that was interesting because that's the pizzeria right there. I just think that's interesting just from that story alone, just that, it's very rare you hear people come forward and sit there and really sit there and say, I don't want you to close. Let me see what I can do for you, especially if you have a sponsor. You got a person or a group or a conglomerate come behind you and say, we want to financially back you. We love what you're doing. Please don't stop. You tell us what you need in order for us to, keep you going. And again, restores my faith in humanity a little bit because I've seen it happen with other businesses and places of that nature. And again, you can't help with the fact of the matter that, yes, if you have the ability to change someone's life, then you should. But the last bit of news I got this week for this podcast, guys, is that in the Honolulu Zoo is celebrating the birth of two lemurs. Um, 5-year-old female Remy and 4-year-old male Finn were born. And you're probably wondering, Will, why are we worried about animals? Yeah, there's a reason. Yes, I know, I'm terrible. But, get it? Lemur, king lemur, Madagascar. Yeah, I'll show myself out. But hey, it was funny to me when I came up with this. But I just figured we all need to laugh at something. And let's be honest, if you see Madagascar and you're still not laughing, something's wrong with you. But that's all I got for this, guys. I do thank you so much for watching. First and foremost, let me sit there and say thank you to all 911 responders, those that are working in the hospitals, doctors, nurses' aides, doctors' aides, orderlies, environmental services people. Pretty much everybody that tries to keep a hospital available, especially ER rooms, trauma surgeons, nurses. You guys are definitely need to get more than what you're getting right now. And not only you guys, but grocery store workers, delivery drivers, those that work in the Amazon, UPS, FedEx, DHL, and United States Postal Service areas, those that work in grocery stores, those that work in factories, those that work in what's considered essential businesses, because you guys are honestly, you may not have a choice, but the fact of the matter is that you're stepping up and still doing things like this just goes to show that you guys need to be thanked for this. And honestly, I wish we could do a lot more than thanking for you, but at least the most we can do here is recognize you. Now, if you've been seeing things that have been scrolling above my head or down below, that is the Cash App for me. Basically, if you want to help as far as making the show better, as far as better equipment, as far as better lighting, I am planning within the next several months because I actually, I don't mind saying this. I actually want to rent a small space to turn into a studio for all these podcasts to be done. Not just from my humble abode. But still, I want to be able to do those things, and I'm saying I'm planning to do those things. So again, if you want to donate, I'll be more than happy to take it. We're not going to be like a church and be like that one creepy guy that wants you to donate your stimulus package. No, not asking you to do that. I'm only asking if you are able to give, please do so. Or if you're just able to watch and just tell people about me, I take that as well. So, besides that, I do have some shameless plugging to do because I am not the only cat that does actually have podcasts. I will start with Vaughn, Big BZA Dot. Big BZA Dot on Facebook, Big BZA Dot podcasting on YouTube, and Big BZA Dot on Twitch. Has a couple of podcasts of his own. The first one is called The VSTs or Busy Solo Takes, in which it is a news podcast. That news could be music, that news could be video games, that news could be trailers, as he loves to show, interactive show just like mine. He also has Rhythm This, which will actually be done today from my house, in which it's going to be interesting because Vaughn has asked us to basically name up albums that have came out this year for us to review. Like I said, it's a musical review podcast of the past and the present, and we grade them to a 4-tier rating system. If you want to know what that rating system is, you have to watch Rhythm This to find out, especially that show, because that's going to be interesting, because it's going to be our picks. And also, he has Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ. What is Random as Fuck? Random as Fuck is the pool of ratchets we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some bills make you think, some bills make you cry. Some videos will stick with you until the test of time. I know, because I still got a couple of them rolling around on replay in my head. And also, he does have a new podcast called Funkin' Around, in which, if you don't know Vaughn, he is I like to call him a musical savant, because you give him a beat, and he comes up with, you give him, I want to say a beat, if you give him an idea, he runs with it and makes a beat off of it. I'm still waiting on my Kirk Franklin, Vaughn. I'm still waiting on my Kirk Franklin. Because, ever since I heard that One Trap song with Marvin Sapp, never would have made it. Like I said, I can't sing, but that's stuck in my head. Anyway, that's the new podcast that he has out. All of his shows, especially when they're going live, can be found under his Facebook at BigBZA. Or his YouTube at BigBZA Podcast, or his Twitch channel at BigBZA. Please go to his page to see exactly when he'll be actually going live or when his next podcast will be. And definitely like, share, and subscribe. My other brother from another brother, Thomas Reed, aka Mountain Puncher. We hope there will be a to be determined podcast because we love Thomas. Not as I mean, if he's consistent as he is with as his shows as he with his workout, he'd be ahead of the game. But we still love him anyway. But he is a guy. If you don't know who Thomas Reed by now is on Facebook, he is a guy that loves fitness, loves to work out, loves to simply be fit. Who's right now jonesing to go back into the gym, but he is exercising caution because even though some gyms have been opened, it's still not safe to go inside. So he's still doing his outside workouts. I'm pretty sure he's still doing sit-ups on the street light. But anyway, he loves talking about fitness, loves talking about workouts, loves to talk about the things that actually will help you reach your zenith and get your results determined upon you. You can find him on his Facebook at Thomas Reed or his YouTube page at the number 2, letter T, letter B, letter D. That's 2TBD. Why? Because we're trying to beat YouTube's algorithm. That's why. But if he is going to be podcasting, which I hope he is today, will probably be sometime between 3 to 5 p.m. Central Time. So basically just look him up on Facebook and Thomas Reed for that. My other brother from Denver, brother Trace Brown, King Eddie Wayne on Facebook, DJ King Eddie Wayne on YouTube, has a couple of podcasts of his own. The first one's called The Bump Down, with his music, culture, knowledge, and numbers, in which he goes over album work, chart sales, and gives his own personal opinion of the recording music industry. I call him Negro Damas just because he has called every artist that is still that has actually went big. He's called Moneybagg Yo, he's called Baby, he's called Meg Thee Stallion. All three of them have blown up, so therefore he has earned the title of Negro Damas, in my opinion. Also, from his other podcast, The Smoke of Truth, I like to call it the Check Your Ego at the Door, No Frills podcast, because when it comes to Trace, I have said it best. Known the guy for over 10 years. He is probably the most unorthodox individual when it comes to opinions and points of views, but I believe those interesting opinions and points of views can definitely benefit those who are willing to listen. So if you're willing to talk, then dadgummit, Trace is willing to talk to you because he always wants all the smoke. All the shows can be found on his Facebook page at King Eddie Wayne, or his YouTube page at DJ King Wayne, or his Twitch channel at DJ King Eddie Wayne. As for yours truly, be me, of course, the How the Frack We Got Here podcast every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. A little bit later tonight, between 8 to 10 p.m., will be the Off Limits podcast. It is the podcast that definitely goes there. Community building, because we will take a subject, no matter how taboo, no matter how forbidden, no matter how funny it is or how serious it is. We do take that because we want to prove a point that you can have a conversation with people and not have an argument with them, jump down each other's throats, trying to persuade them and things of that nature. Just simply having a productive, progressive conversation is really the point of what we do about that show. Of course, on Sundays between 5 to 7 p.m. will be my Get Bit podcast. It is the Blurred contest made created by birds, for blurs to enjoy. It is a podcast that we cover everything from anime, manga, video games, comics, sports, computers. And I say sports because I mean wrestling, because if Vaughn was here, I would have him play his bit. It's still real to me, damn it, for some of us who do enjoy wrestling. But anyway, it is a show that I do love. Like I said before, like I said, it's a little bit different from Vaughn's VST, because if Vaughn's VST is the main course, consider me the chocolate eclair at the end. And also, but the newest addition. The newest addition, I can't say addition right now. The newest addition to my group podcast is the Burned Out podcast, which will be every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. As I've said it before, you've probably heard Vaughn and them all call me tech support, because I am an IT person, and I do have a bunch of stories that I just really want to share from my opinion and view of the IT world that you users do love. So again, the Burned Out podcast is a storytelling podcast every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. Also, all of my shows can be found under my Facebook at William Buchanan. I've been told it's very easy to find me. I've also created Facebook pages finally, all of them now have Facebook pages. Please forgive the graphic arts right now. I'm trying to work with someone on actually getting better graphics art for the pages. So, if all Facebook pages, all my shows do have Facebook pages. So if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, the Off Limits podcast, Get Bit, that is GITBIT, and of course the Burned Out podcast, all of them have Facebook pages that you can like, share, and subscribe with others who might actually like this type of content. And they also have all YouTube pages. So if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, if you look up the Off Limits podcast, if you look up Get Bit, if you look up the Burned Out podcast, They are all active YouTube pages right now, so you can definitely like, share, and subscribe from there. And of course, I've always asked this at the end of every one of my podcasts: if you like what you see, let me know. If you didn't like what you see, let me know, because I'm actually trying to make the platform better to where you can enjoy and hopefully pass it on to others, and then hopefully pass on to others. Because our whole point of this Table of Bosses group that we call ourselves is that we are just basically trying to not only open the door, but kick that sumbitch off the hinges and leave it open for other people to come in and do their thing as well. We're not all about being greedy. We're all about sharing the table, because honestly, all that food out there, everybody can eat, honestly. So, with that being said, guys, the last thing I'll say about how the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. Staying informed means that you're not accepting everything at face value. You're really going out there and searching out the truth yourself. Not a conspiracy theorist, not anything of that nature, but looking for actual fact. And doing so, being able to bring it back to somebody else to show them what you've seen in order for them to inspire them to do the same. Because we're not here to change minds and persuade others. We are simply trying to inform you with all the facts to give you for yourself, for you to make up your own damn mind. Because an uninformed community is always going to pick Dorito. An informed community is always going to make better decisions. But the uninformed will always pick those that they've been told to. And unfortunately, that's how the Frack We Got Here. So, with that being said, guys, thank you all for watching. If you're watching this on the replay, please feel free to comment as if I'm there, because I definitely want to see everybody's comments. Thank you, everybody who has actually commented so far on this one. And if you watched it, I appreciate it. If you poked your head in, I appreciate it. If you like, share, and subscribe, and started a watch party, I appreciate it. But I just want to say, guys, like I said before, until this COVID-19 is beat, the best thing we can do is be cautious, be preventative, be safe, use your heads. It's not going to kill us, but if we decide that it is going to kill us, is how the whole disease wins. So with that being said, guys, hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Please be safe, and only go out when you need to, and pretty much we'll be all right.